Hello and welcome to Positively United. Today, Thursday the 5th of March 2026, the day after our defeat to Newcastle at St James's Park last night. 2-1 defeat, really disappointing result, and all-round a disappointing performance, but a perplexing one, I thought, and I mentioned that last night in my immediate post-match review, mini review. I found it a perplexing performance in many ways, and that's reflected in my player ratings, which I'm going to do in this video, because I've actually found it really quite difficult to do the player ratings, because I found myself constantly torn between wanting to mark the players low and then looking at my notes about the game and often not having a great deal of negative stuff to say about some players. I thought that was a performance last night that actually delivered less than the performance warranted. I don't think the performance was anything like as bad as it felt like at the time. I've actually rewatched some parts of it just to understand what I was looking at. And essentially, the same faults that we've seen over the last several games have just re-emerged. They're just there. They're just always there. And they don't get addressed. They don't get solved. And I genuinely feel actually that the reason they don't get addressed and don't get solved is we simply don't have the people to address them, by which I mean players. We don't have alternatives that we can bring into the team to cure the problems that we see. And it suggests the summer is going to be a very, very important transfer window, because we need to address some really, really problematical areas of the squad that are just simply underperforming. But let's get to the player ratings. This is the starting lineup. Le Mans in goal, Mazraoui, Yoro, Maguire, Shaw across the back, Casemiro and Mainu across the middle, Mbumo, Fernandes and Cunha as our advanced midfielders / forwards, and Šeško as the striker. And I would guess that is a team that the vast majority of us thought that would be played, apart from the surprise to see Mazraoui coming in instead of Dalot. But we've been wanting that, haven't we, for a very long time. Those of us who've complained about Dalot's performances, we've been wanting Mazraoui in. I'm surprised it took so long for Mazraoui to come in after him coming back from AFCON. But he got picked last night. Shaw and Maguire, clearly, well, I say clearly, but presumably fit after their illnesses at the weekend. Otherwise, would they play? Well, that's the thing about Shaw, isn't it? Who else would you play instead of Shaw? Because by the end of the game, we certainly realised that Shaw is not the worst left-back we have in the squad by any stretch of the imagination. So anyway, that was the starting lineup, and the player ratings. Le Mans, I'm going to give him a 6. I mean, he normally gets a 7 from me. Now, I appreciate that I'll be in a minority on this, just as I was in a minority, I think, at the weekend, when I was wondering if Le Mans could have done better with the Crystal Palace goal that was scored after 4 minutes, where he seemed to be rooted to the spot and rooted to the wrong spot when the header went in. Now, I appreciate most people, the vast majority of people, said, no, it was just a really great header. He couldn't do anything. When Newcastle scored their winning goal, granted, it is a superb strike. Absolutely superb strike. But Le Mans doesn't even dive. He just lets it go. Now, maybe this is a quirk. Maybe Le Mans is somebody who is so relaxed, so confident, that he feels he doesn't have to dive performatively at a shot he knows he's got no chance of getting to. And I'd kind of respect that in some ways. But another bit of me would say, well, just dive for the show of it, even if you know you're not going to get there. But he did seem to be rooted to the spot. I appreciate I'm going to be in a minority on this, but I'm knocking him off down to 6. Well, every player starts at 6. But I'm not going to knock him down to 5.5 for that, because he actually made some good saves. Didn't have that much to do, but the penalty incident, for example, he came out really well. So he's a 6. but he could have been a 6.5 or even a 7 had it not been for the goal. But I appreciate I'm going to be in a minority on that. It was great to see Mazraoui on, but I can only give him a 5.5. And obviously there are going to be some low scores as a consequence, not just of a result, but the overall lethargic, pedestrian performance that was lacking in urgency, lacking in penetration, lacking in imagination, lacking in verve and vigour. And Mazraoui kind of like summed that up. Started on the right, moved over to the left when Shaw was taken off, and Dalot came on. Dalot ended up being on the right, Mazraoui on the left, and then he himself was substituted. He was subbed after 84 minutes with an injury. Well, let's hope that's not too bad because we don't need any more injuries. But yeah, just a 5.5. He was okay in defence, perfectly average. But the very thing we asked him to be brought into the team to do, which was to be a more effective attacker than Dalot, just didn't materialise. So conservative when moving forward, didn't move forward enough, didn't move forward far enough, didn't cross the ball. In fact, right the way throughout the game, the criticism of all the players who were in wide or potentially wide positions was they didn't get wide, they didn't get wide long enough, they didn't get wide far enough forward, and they didn't cross. And that's been an ongoing saga now since West Ham. We saw it first, I think, against West Ham, in that miserable first half, but it's carried on since. We're ridiculously narrow. We don't use width. And teams, when Newcastle went down to 10 men, you can't blame them for this. They closed down the midfield, which they already had a hand on, which they already completely dominated. It just got worse. And we just played through the middle. And actually, the winning goal starts off with us losing possession by trying to thread a ball through the eye of a needle in a congested central area. Yeah, that's got to be addressed. And to Carrick, you know, it's this is direct to Carrick. You need to solve this. You know, I know you've not really got the players to do it. Missing Dorgu, really missing Dorgu. You can understand why Carrick played Dorgu in that position of left wing, sort of left wing, for the first two games against City and Arsenal till he was injured, because he is the only player, it seems, at the moment we've got who's comfortable staying wide and using width. And that's a real problem for us. But Mazraoui 5.5. Yoro I'm going to give a 6, which is the highest score I've given him since he's been back in the team. Again, slightly nervous start, but he recovered much more quickly this week. He got his feet really well. And great composure, with a wonderful tackle in 11 minutes. 28th minute, really good interception. 74th minute, great header that brought a great save. Yeah, he could have scored, and perhaps not should have done. It was just a good header and a good save. Maybe he should have directed the header wider, but whatever. I think he actually had a pretty decent game. A 6 for me, because almost nobody deserves more than a 6 after last night's performance, but nevertheless a pretty good performance by Yoro, and certainly a lot better than I think he's played in the last several games. Maguire, again a 6. It would have been a 6.5 or even a 7, because actually I thought he played absolutely excellently, and it just typically excellently, as he's been over the last several weeks now. Right, again, I'm perfectly happy for people to think that I am being tough, but I've looked at the Newcastle winning goal over and over and over again, and I look at Maguire's positioning. Now, I think the positioning is right. He sees Malacia is either badly out of place or won't get back into place, or is completely hopeless. And so Maguire wants to take control of the situation, but knows he hasn't got the pace to get back fully to tackle, Plus, he knows it's probably not a good idea anyway, because if he misses the tackle, then Newcastle are straight on goal. So he keeps a really good position, actually, where he's trying to narrow the angles. But here's the problem. When the shot goes in, you watch it again if you can. You'll notice Maguire kind of almost flinches away from the ball as it's going past him. And I watched it over and over again to try and find out what on earth was going on, because it looked like he'd almost like moved away from the ball. And then, of course, you get to realise exactly what's going on. He is, of course, scared stiff of the ball hitting his arm. So he's moving his arm out of the way. And it's tough to blame him for this, because, of course, all players have got to be now so sensitive, defenders particularly, about being accused of handball when it's not really handball. It wouldn't have been handball. It would just hit his arm. But he can't take that risk, so he moves his arm away. And as he's moving his arm away, he's kind of like almost moving his body out of the way. So I think probably completely unintentional. I think probably just because he's so concerned about being accused of handball if the ball hits his arm. But he definitely moves away from the ball, so it's a 6 rather than a 6.5 or a 7. Shaw was a 5.5. I don't know if he was fully fit or fully well. But it's, again, okay in defence, but offers absolutely nothing going forward. And I tell you what I'd like to see us get in the summer is our fullback situation sorted out. I think we need 2 positive, good defenders as fullbacks, but I think we need attacking fullbacks. If we're going to continue with Cunha and Mbumo, who tend to naturally play in the spaces rather than as left wing or right wing, they play in the space between central and the wings. If we continue to play with Cunha and Mbumo, and I think we should, because I think they're both excellent players, we need players who can go past them in wide positions, and that can only be the fullbacks. So we need a really good attacking fullback on the left and a really good attacking fullback on the right. I think we've got the attacking fullback on the left, and I think that is Dorgu. And I think if it's not Dorgu, it's Harry Amas as a backup. I think we've got the left back sorted out, but we need to go out and buy an appropriate right back. And it's not Delo, it's not Mazraoui. We need a new right back who can play as a right back and as a very, very positive, advanced, wide attacking fullback. 5.5 for sure. Midfield. This is where we totally lost the game. And this has now become a feature. We completely lost the midfield in the first half. Joe Linton and Tonali and Ramsey, until Ramsey was sent off, were totally dominant. But this is the worrying thing. Even when Ramsey got sent off, they were totally dominant. Tonali and Joe Linton completely dominated the midfield throughout the game. Let's start with Casemiro. Casemiro would have got a lower score than 5.5. He would have got a 5 or a 4.5 had he not scored a goal. It was a great goal. Great goal. Supercross from Bruno. Really great header from Casemiro. And he's the best player we've got at doing that. And and this is the problem. It takes away the heat from what you should be getting as an increasingly ineffectual midfielder. Sorry to say it, but he is. He's not good enough. He's had good patches this season, but ask him to play 2 games a week and you just may as well give up. It just doesn't happen. He's leggy, out of touch, not in the game. Really disappointing performance, but a 5.5 because he scored the goal. Manu doesn't have that forgiveness. It's a 4.5 for Manu. Could have been a 4. Dull, lifeless, not in the game. Yes, still was able to receive the ball as he does all the time, but did nothing with it. I thought it was a really poor performance by Manu. And if there was any justice in the world, Manu would be dropped for the next game because if you play badly for a number of games, you should be dropped. But there is nobody to replace him, is there? And this is the problem we've got in our defensive midfield positions. Both Mainu and Casemiro are irreplaceable because there's literally no one to replace them. I'll come on to Ugarte in a little bit, because I don't think he was half bad when he came on, to be honest with you. But you can't be Michael Carrick and looking at Ugarte, looking at the bench and thinking, I've got somebody I can bring onto midfield who can really move things and change things and shape things up and bring a different perspective. He hasn't. He just hasn't got that player. And we had a chance in January to get such a player, and we should have done, and we didn't. And that's a failure of the structure. Michael Carrick's been let down on that. I said so at the time. We should have taken a lone player, at least in January. We chose not to. That was a mistake, a flat-out mistake. We needed to bring some quality into midfield. Not necessarily a starter, but somebody who could come in and replace Mainu or Casemiro when one of them is flagging or not having a good game. But we lost the midfield last night. Even with 10 men, we lost the midfield. And that's where most of a lot of our problems stem from. Moving to our advanced midfielders / attackers. Mbeumo, desperately disappointing game 5. He appears to have been getting more and more tired as the last few games have been going on. I think he needs a bench rest for the next game. I really do. And I think Ahmad should be swapped in for Mbeumo. He's been brilliant this season, don't get me wrong. I think Mbeumo is a brilliant player. I really do. I just think he needs a rest. I just think he needs a bit of time to be out of the team. One game probably will be enough. But yeah, he should be rotated out. Cunha on the other side, I think, offered more. I give him a 5.5 as opposed to Mbeumo's 5. And I've said this about Cunha so many times. I said at the weekend, is he underappreciated? He is. Because he can have as quiet a game as Mbeumo for most of the game, but then will still produce some action. And he did have moments yesterday. I just think he's finding it difficult to play when there's no one running down by the side of him, down the left wing. So a 5.5. Fernandes, it's a 6.5 because, and it would have been a 7 because as in so many games recently, he is our powerhouse. He is our engine. Might not have been his finest game yesterday, but where does the goal come from? A Bruno Fernandes cross. A pinpoint cross. 16th minute, he's involved in a wonderful, wonderful move. I'll come to the penalty in just a bit. Great cross for Casemiro in the 8th minute of injury time in the first half. Great cross to Yoro in 74, which was Yoro's attempted headed goal. Great cross to Ugarte in the 75th minute, where he probably should have done better. Great cross to Cunha after 83, didn't work out, but that's not Bruno's fault. Creating all the way through, the engine, the powerhouse of everything we do. Why then only 6.5? He gave the penalty away. And he did. It was a silly challenge in the penalty area. And we had just seen Newcastle go down to 10 men. And then we give a penalty away. That was stupid. So, yeah, down to 6.5, it would have been 7. But still, the man who is the engine of everything we do. Shesko up front, 5.5, and I almost feel guilty about that. It wasn't a great game from him. But I don't honestly understand what more he could have done. Maybe he should have come deeper to make things happen. But if he had done, he'd have just been running into congestion. And maybe that's what he knew. Should he have gone wider? I don't know. Is that where he ought to be? He'd have just been getting in the way of Mbeumo and Cunha. I thought it was a really tough game for him. And so many of our forwards over the years have been in that position. He gets a 5.5, but he would feel aggrieved, I think, because he would be putting his hands up and saying, well, what was I supposed to do? And perhaps I should have given him a 6, because I start with a 6 and you only lose points or gain points. And he didn't actually do anything wrong. But you can't give him a 6, can you, when he essentially produced next to nothing? When all the substitutions were made, this is the team. Well, this is where I think we ended up. I can't be 100% certain, but I think this is where we ended up because we had an awful lot of substitutions. Mazraoui, he was subbed after 84. Malacia came on. That was fateful. Shaw came off after 60 minutes for Dalot. Casemiro came off after 60 minutes for Ugarte. Let's have a look. Yeah, Ahmad came on for Mainu after 76 minutes. Xerxes came on for Mbumo after 76. So I mentioned Dalot came on for Shaw after 60. Yeah, so a load of substitutions, 5 in all, I think. And for those who came on, well, Dalot a 5.5, didn't deserve anything more. Just what we've come to expect from Dalot. He was as bad or as good as he'd been when he started in the previous game against Crystal Palace. We know what we're going to get from Dalot at the moment. It's not necessarily very good. I'm going to come to Malacia in a bit. Ugarte in midfield, I thought he was okay. I'm giving him a 6 because I don't want to give him a 6.5. But he actually looked pretty lively, and he actually did some good work. Great, powerful run down the right wing after 73 minutes. It's actually one of the best runs we'd seen down the right wing all game from us. Good header after 75. Excellent tackle after 81. He was okay, actually. And he didn't let us down, I don't think. So I think he deserves a 6. Dalot, really disappointing when he came on. When he came on against Palace on Sunday, he looked really lively and he really looked like he was up for it. Last night, I think he's probably caught up in the general malaise and the congested midfield. So a 5.5 really didn't offer anything. Xerxes, different. I think he deserves a 6.5. He really looked on it. That shot after 88 minutes, it was brilliantly saved by Ramsdale. It's a real quality save. But it was one hell of a shot. It was dipping. It was definitely going in. It was beautifully struck. If that had gone in, that would have been one of the goals of the season. He was unlucky that he came across a goalkeeper last night. He looked like he was really on a mission to prove himself. Great save from Ramsey. So Xerxes deserves his 6.5, I think, because it was a pretty good performance. And then we come to Malacia. Do you know, I feel sorry for the lad. He should never have been bought. Should never have been bought to United. It's not Premier League quality. It's not Manchester United quality. It's not his fault. Disastrous. Another disastrous purchase of the Ten Hag era. When he came on, he honestly looked like he had been pulled out of a crowd and put on, given a kit and put on the pitch. He looked totally out of place. Looked like a child in a man's game. And his mistakes directly led to the goal. So it's a 4. Why did Carrick choose to bring him on instead of Aiden Heaven? I'm going to say, without me knowing anything else about the circumstances, that was just an appalling decision, and it's Carrick's biggest mistake since he's been head coach. I'm assuming Aiden Heaven wasn't carrying an injury or anything, but that was a terrible, terrible decision. And it kind of cost us the match. There was 2 things that cost us the match, because we would have got out with a 1-1 draw, which would have been not great in the circumstances, but it's a score I'd have been happy with before the game kicked off, because I thought this was going to be a really tough game. But we lost it because of that. Because basically Malacia was nowhere to be seen. Gave a ball away, nowhere to be seen, totally out of place. Maguire having to do the job of 2 defenders. Yeah, really bad. Really, really bad. My man of the match, Fernandes, you won't be surprised to hear. I've already put the man of the match star against his name because there's no point in keeping it a secret to the end. He's definitely the man of the match, but not his greatest game. in a sea of mediocrity. He was definitely man of the match. I'm going to do 5 insights later on today. But just at the end of this video, after I've done the player ratings, we know what the problems are. We've got no width. And we've got now a tiring, it seems, and underperforming midfield duo in Manu and Casemiro. And it's really, really costing us. It's really costing us. Okay, well, that's it for today's video on player ratings. I'll follow this up later today with 5 insights from the game against Newcastle. If you like the video, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. If you have a friend who you think would enjoy this channel and the sort of attitude we take, please let them know about the channel and get them to subscribe too. Hit the bell. That will let you know when new videos are coming out. And there's a link to our X account in the description, link to our Coffee account in the description. But until I see you again later today, always remain positively united.